The first night of this program, we talked about xiao dao, filial respect. The second night, we talked about bowing. Last night, we talked about harmless eating in a way that doesn't increase bad karma or harm your seeds of compassion. And since then, I've been getting feedback from friends, and it was actually Sharon who asked an important question about the topic of first night, filiality. And say it's an important question because I've heard it from other people as well, both in California, here in Australia, in China, and Taiwan. So I'm going to continue with tonight's topic, but save some time at the end and respond to Sharon's question, and I think other folks' question as well, on the topic of filiality. Alrighty, so let's get going. What is tonight's topic? I have said twice I'm going to talk about Chengzan Rulai, and I'm not. Again, nope, we'll push that aside. That will come later. What I wanted to talk about was what I was looking in my notes, looking at my prepared materials, and I think maybe the most important part of foundation of Dharma that I was completely unprepared for when I got to Gold Mountain Monastery and studied with Master Hua was the idea of precepts. Precepts is absolutely a foundation. 看得清楚吗？不太小，会不会太小？小一点。Okay, I can't. Let's see. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right, here's what we do. How do we do it? Need to. Okay. In that case, let's see here. That's okay. And can I make that bigger? That's a narrow, skinny. Okay. Here we go. I didn't expect when I got to Gold Mountain Monastery and met a real teacher, I didn't expect that I was going to find out so much about behavior and who I was as a person. I had no idea that was important. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to be speaking as an American, as an Australian, Westerner, who only found out about this idea of changing your behavior is the path to Buddhahood and the path to liberation. I'm going to talk about that from the point of view of a beginner, someone who's hearing it for the first time. If I know here we have 5 Buddhist nuns who are deeply experienced in holding precepts. We have many lay people here who hold the 5, the 8, the lay bodhisattva precepts. But think that the voice and my voice tonight and the ideas that I want to introduce tonight are going to be heard, I hope, by people who have no knowledge of Buddhism, who are very interested, who want to come at it fresh. And so this is aimed at beginners understanding why challenging your own behavior, shaping your own behavior by ancient guidelines, why that's a good thing to do. That's our question. Why is that a good thing to do? How does that help me wake up? Okay, that's the question. So here's one idea. The precepts that the Buddha taught. Let's get out of Chinese. That the Buddha taught were given in the context of meditation. Someone who has already decided to live a spiritual lifestyle will find these guidelines necessary to success in the spiritual lifestyle. The precepts are pragmatic. They are practical. 那就是说实用. They are meant to be used every day in words, deeds, and thoughts. Okay, this is my understanding of precepts, that they are practical. They are not judgmental. It's not that, I'm going beyond my text. It's not that the Buddha likes me better if I hold the precepts. And if I break a precept, he does not like me. That's not the question to ask. These are practical. They are not judgmental. The Buddha is not judging precept holders as good or bad. He's saying, if you have decided to lead a spiritual lifestyle, these guidelines are necessary to success. Okay? So, the turning point in my new understanding of precepts came from an awareness. In suggesting these guidelines to behavior, better to do this, better to do, avoid that. The Buddha is not looking to have power over me. I don't lose any individual decision making or authority when I follow the precepts. The precepts are transmitted without hooks or traps. Okay? Does language work for you? My American rebellious mind, as a young man growing up in the 1960s, always asked anyone who gave me a rule, I said, who says I have to follow your rules? I do what I want to do. You can't make me do anything else. That was my mind as a young man growing up. In the Buddha's family, the only answer was, let's see here, this doesn't make sense. The only answer, let's see, was an alarm. Let's see here, that doesn't work. We'll scratch that. Okay, after taking the precepts, after I joined the Buddha's community and began to meditate, I had already decided that I wanted to explore my life as a meditator. I had already decided to meditate. I had a spiritual goal in mind, liberation from affliction. I wanted to follow the Buddha and wake up. Okay? Now, I'm just talking about myself. I had decided that I wanted to meditate. I had a goal in mind. I wanted to follow the Buddha and wake up. The Buddha's answer was, you are welcome to follow the paths that I took to awakening. You're welcome to follow me. I learned it by doing. You can learn it by listening to my instructions. You can walk the same path that I walked. Here is the map, and here is what you must avoid. And here is what you must avoid if you are going to succeed. Right? You hear the practical? If you are hoping to succeed. There is no judgment there. Again, the Buddha is not a cop. So important in changing my understanding. So he says, I walked this way, I succeeded. You want to do what I did? Walk the same way. While you do it, be careful here. Here is the map. If you kill, it will throw you off in your mind. Stealing will do the same. You'll make a mistake. You'll stumble. You'll sprain your ankle. You will break your leg. You will not succeed. Lust will fill your mind with thoughts that you need to avoid while you're meditating. Lies that you tell will fill the mind with waves of confusion that directly fog your mind. If you smoke marijuana, if you smoke tobacco, if you drink alcohol, if you drop chemical substances, you will not succeed. Okay? So that was the new awareness, that the Buddha gave the precepts to people who wanted to follow him and plan to succeed. It's that practical. It's that clear. Here's an example of a story. There was someone else in America who had the same awakening that I did. One of the early writers on Zen meditation, a man who's now passed away, he was a pioneer of what was called the Diamond Sangha in Hawaii, was a man named Robert Aitken. Robert Aitken. And Robert Aitken wrote in his book called Mind of Clover about his community's encounter with precepts. At first, the Zen meditators in the Diamond Sangha interpreted a Buddhist lifestyle off the meditation cushion as license to do anything. Libertine heedlessness. The early meditators, if you were a Buddhist, do anything you want. The life they lived was the reckless hedonism of the 1960s. That is to say, if it feels good, do it, right? With a little bit of meditation added on top. Couples, boys and girls, would meditate in the hall, knee to knee, but then at night go upstairs and swap partners from husband to wife. Aitken reports that despite the sincerity of many of his students, this ethos of what was called follow your bliss, just zongyu, right? If it feels good, do it. It nearly destroyed their community. Now, this is truly, he writes in more detail. He said many times they would get up from meditation and then jump into the hot tub, boys and girls together. And then they would get up from meditation and then have a barbecue with, barbecued ribs. Their meditation was just added to their lifestyle. They were not Buddhists the way we describe them. Okay, what happened? Marriages split up. Fights broke out in the meditation hall. They actually had fist fights in the hall because people were jealous. And jealousies and animosities became daily struggle. At some point, Aitken, the teacher, who was a wise man, found himself looking into the Buddha's teachings to find a solution inside the Sangha so that his group could stay intact. He figured the Buddhist Sangha succeeded, why are we breaking up? It was then that he discovered precepts and the traditional formula, Shila, Samadhi, Prajna, Jie, Ding, Hui. Nobody taught him in the Zen world about Jie, about the precept part. He skipped directly to the Ding and the Hui without the Jie, did not succeed, failed. So, indeed, the Buddha prescribed a method to organize the community to prepare for meditation. It was called the Vinaya. The instructions on the Vinaya made up an entire basket of the Dega San Zang Jing, a complete Zang was for Vinaya, Jie Lu. When Aitken instituted some of the rules from the Jie Zang, his community came together. They changed their behavior and they flourished. The young Americans sacrificed their extreme freedom for rules that held the meditation together in harmony. Now, after this, the American Vipassana movement wrote a code for teacher-student conduct based on the 5 precepts, and it holds that movement together through the decades. So, Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna is how the Buddha taught meditation. The early American Buddhists left out the Shila part. Okay. Why? Can anybody who knows the history of Buddhism in America knows that? Excuse me, one second. The Robert Aitken and his group, the Diamond Sangha, were American Zen. Okay. Where did American Zen learn their meditation? They learned it from Japan. Now, what happened in Japan? In Japan, in 1867, was it? The Meiji Mingzhi Huangdi, the Japanese Meiji Emperor, rose up against the Zen community in Japan and forced all of the monks to return to lay life, to break their precepts, and to get married. So from that time, it was very difficult in Japan to find the precepts. So by the time American Zen came to America, nobody taught the first step, the Shila part. So that's what happened in when American Zen got to Hawaii with Robert Aiken, nobody talked about the precepts. So that's very interesting. And after they changed, they succeeded. Okay, now move ahead. Okay. Now this part, this is my personal story, and I will see if folks can relate to it, see if this makes sense to you. Certainly, if I grew up in Taiwan, I would have a different experience from someone like me growing up in the Midwest in America. But we both come to the same precepts when we find the Dharma. Okay, here we go. The question is, 什么叫真正自由? 什么叫真正自在? Okay? My growing, evolving 进化 attitude towards precepts. Question of discipline or spontaneity. Okay? Growing up in the 1950s and 1960s in America, my attitude towards rules was, don't fence me in. Do people know this cliche? This was a song in America. Don't fence me in, meaning you can't put me, you can't tell me no. Okay? In the post-Second World War world, with its conformity and regimentation, the backlash of American culture to that world was outlaws, loners, cowboys on the frontier, movie stars, John Wayne, Hondo, Butch Cassidy, Paladin in Half Gun Run Travel, Bart Maverick, Kung Fu, spies, 007, super spies, smart, tough guys, right? These were tough men who only relied on their own compass. They didn't pay any attention to law, to rules. They were called outlaws. They were called nonconformists. Rules were made to be broken. No fence could hold them. This was the world that I grew up in, looking for a model of how to be a man, how to be an adult. The mores, the values of a society, were broken. They were unimportant. If you follow the rules, you are pathetic. You're just a citizen who doesn't have creativity. You don't have enough testosterone to make your own way. If there's a conflict, if you, being a loner, hang into another one, what do? You settle it with fists, with guns, with tires. You leave. You get out of, let's get out of here. You run away. That's no rules can hold you. You could do what you want, and if the law comes to enforce these regulations, you hit the road and outrun the cops. I saw this over and over and over. This was the standard at this point. Okay, somebody else always cleans up the broken, the trail of broken furniture in your wake. So the criteria was freedom at all costs. Freedom was the most important. Now, how you interpret freedom, unclear. Mostly, I do what I want, when I want to, you can't stop me. Okay, so I'll skip over some of this. You get the point. When I got to Buddhism, I was totally unprepared to hear the teacher, the awakened, skillful teacher, say, if you want to get free, follow the rules. That's the first step. That's key. Follow the rules if you want to get truly free. Breaking the rules of society doesn't make you more free. So, in other words, what Shifu was saying was, liberation begins with jie li. Okay. Furthermore, this is really key. When we come to the precepts in Buddhism, they are voluntary. You hold the precepts because you want to. Nobody comes after you to put you in precept jail except yourself. You hold the rules because you want to. That is so, so, so different. The Buddha is not a policeman there to hit you on the head with a club if he catches you breaking the precept. The rules have no punishment in them. There were no policemen waiting to punish a rule breaker, a precept breaker. Every step of the Buddha's experience comes from his own wish to get free from suffering. That needs to be said really clearly. I'm glad Cliff is translating tonight because he can get it clear. Every step of the Buddha's experience comes from his wish to get free. Kindly, with a kind heart, he said, you want to follow me? Do what I did. Avoid this mistake. Kill, steal, lust, lie, drugs, mistake. You will not be able to succeed following me. It's up to you. You choose. Hold the precepts. They are free. They don't cost a penny, but you can't buy them. They are priceless, right? So, as a monk, I had total freedom of behavior in the eyes of other people. Let's see here, sorry. Let's see here. Okay, compétent. Well, let's see here. We're moving on. This is not helpful. Okay, the purpose of the precepts was something that I learned only after years of cultivating as a monk in robes. I learned that the Buddha described the precepts as guidelines, a reminder of the truths that he learned while he was practicing. After the Buddha succeeded in cultivation, he came back and he told us who follow him that we too can realize an end to our suffering if we do what he did and avoid making the mistakes that are easy to make. He said, in effect, here are the mistakes that will take you off the path. Here are the errors to avoid if you want to wake up. This is good advice. This is gentle encouragement, very different from a punishing judge who gives us rules and waits for us to fail and then puts us in jail. Okay? The Buddha's wise guidelines support people who want to follow him, who seek genuine freedom from old age, sickness, and death. I had to realign my understanding of rules and freedom. The Buddha's project indeed was another level of engagement with freedom and restriction of freedom, limitations to freedom. He saw that the only freedom that people experience is a brief moment before death, which amounts to no freedom at all. We have 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years before we die. How much freedom is that? So the Buddha says, let's engage in a bigger level of freedom. So from the Buddha's point of view, from the point of view of the Buddha's precepts, my rebellious nature against my don't fence me in whatsoever was just postponing and even obstructing my engagement with the rules that exist in the nature, in the Tao, in the nature, in the awakened nature, in reality. Rules that could deliver me to real freedom, not just a victory over structure that leaves me confused. Okay. All right. There we go. So that's another idea. Okay. I'm making that one point hard and repeated because why? I was really not clear on that point. Precepts are not a limitation to my freedom. That was a big deal. Let's see here. Okay. Let's take a look here. This is an important one to look at, to think about here. Oops, what happened here? Not responding, we'll close it. Okay, there we go. 7:30. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to switch over. We may come back tomorrow to precepts. I have all a list of the numbers: the 5, the 8, the 10, the 在家菩萨戒, 出家菩萨戒, 比丘, 比丘尼戒. I've got a whole description of the various kinds. But that's less important than the attitude towards them. Okay, Sharon came up with a really good question, and let me just say it without giving you something to look at here. The way I outlined filiality, I talked about filiality has to do with recognizing when people have been good to you and finding a way to repay it. That it's kind of a debt of gratitude, and it's a happy thing to do. Every time I explain that principle, someone comes up to me later and says, wait a minute, you don't know my old man, you don't know my father, you don't know my mother. He's a rotten, dirty son of a bitch, and you want me to get back with him, what's the point? You don't know my father. And is that what you're telling me? So the question is, what if somebody is really bad to you and is abusive? Or what if they're absent? If they're not even there, what do we do then? So that's a big challenge to the question of 知恩报恩 filiality. Now, there's another challenge, which is filiality was given in a time when every child had lots of adults around. They had their own parents, they had grandparents, maybe 2 sets of grandparents. They had uncles, they had aunties, they had brothers and sisters living in the same compound. Families were big and extended families. You knew the face of many adults as you were growing up. So, if your birth parents didn't work out, or one of them went off to war, or one of them, if they split, you had other adults close by who could raise you, who knew you, who were related to you. So the idea of some adult showing you how to be a human growing up, that was easy. That was easier. Now, as I mentioned, in the last 40 years, single-parent families are more than double-parent families. More children, to like 7 to 3, 7 out of 10 families at public schools these days report that children have one parent at home for various reasons, right? So if that person is working and you come home and there's no adult at home, what then? Now, since then, I've heard also another challenge, which is in China there's an important issue now called 原生家庭, the original family, and questions around this are very hotly discussed. Now, how is it going to work? So, these are important challenges to the traditional idea of filiality. How does it work? My thought is if it doesn't work, how are we going to approach the Tao? How are we going to find liberation? How are we going to experience compassion? Okay? That's what I want to bring up. So, I remember in 1985, the big scientific topic back then was not AI. Nobody was talking about AI. What were people talking about? Cloning. Kolong, you say? Kolong, right, cloning. If you remember, it was 1985. Dolly the sheep, you remember Dolly the sheep? She was a sheep created not from the womb of her mother, but from a test tube. She was a test tube lamb. And Master Hua at the time, I remember he said so clearly, he said, this is the first step down a very slippery slope. He said, the future of this is the end of the Tao, the end of liberation. Not that the Tao or the path goes anywhere, it's just that we forget to look. As soon as your organs, he said, as soon as we can go into a facility and buy a set of kidneys or buy a heart from another creature, as soon as we come from a laboratory, how do we find our way back to our birth parents and through them to great kindness, great compassion? He said that's impossible. So he said, mark this time and pay attention. So, okay, big question. Now, here's my answer to Sharon and to all of the people. Every lecture, someone comes up and says, now, let me get this straight. Are you telling me I should go get back with so-and-so who was so bad to me? And the answer is no, of course I'm not. That's not going to help your path at all. What I am suggesting is that we need to recognize in our nature that there is something in us, born in, that longs to connect to our fundamental human nature. We need that connection to our roots. It has not gone anywhere. Even though we're in 21st century, 2025, it's just as important in us to connect to our human roots now as it was back in the Buddha's time, back in the Tang Dynasty, back in the turn of the century. Right? It hasn't gone away. We need to connect to that source of our identity in the human family. So, how is that possible when you haven't seen your mother's face or your father is absent? How is that possible when you come home and there's nobody there? So imagine if a family gives birth to a child and then go off to work and leave the child to be raised by a maid or a housekeeper. Often that is the case. The child, 11 years old, becomes the little emperor. He's never seen a male. He doesn't have an older brother to beat sense into him. He doesn't have a father to tell him no. How is this possible? How can we raise children who are connected both vertically with their parents and horizontally with their siblings, so that they are they're raised in a matrix, right in the center, where they know who they are? That's a big challenge for today. All right, here's what I wanted to share. Let me show you. Okay, here we go. The ethical foundations of Buddhist practice. This is as expressed by our teacher, Master Hsien Hua. There is a world of relationships. Is it a science? Is it an art? Is it a skill? Is it just natural? Well, if it was, we would do better with our relationships. How do I relate skillfully with my family? Is there a PDF for talking to my father? Is there a manual for understanding a teenager? How do we cope with our aging parents? So we are exploring the relationship between meditation and filial connections. So we people live in three worlds at once: a material, qi shijian, a relational, zhong sheng shijian, and a spiritual, zheng jue shijian. The quality of our lives depends on how authentically we wake up and live into each of these three worlds. So here they are. There's the qi shijian, that's our bodies in the world around us, the floor beneath us, the roof over our heads. There's a zhong sheng shijian, and that's all the different relationships. There is a zheng jue shijian, that's the important world of awakening. I've got to go through these to get to the... We people live in multiple relationships at the same time. This is the zhong sheng shijian. We are descendants of ancestors who came before us. We are the children of parents. Some of us are parents of children. We are husbands of wives, wives of husbands, partners of spouses. We are brothers. We are sisters. We are students of teachers. We are friends of friends. We are citizens, employees, teammates, all at the same time. All those relationships live inside of us invisibly to be explored as they happen. As you deal with your children, as you deal with your aging mother or father, when you meet your teacher, etc. So that's the world of awakening, the world of relationships, and we are in it all the time. The material world talks about Tong Ti Da Bei. Okay, here we are. Fire, earth, bones, tendons, hair, teeth, nails. Same in fish, same in humans, same in birds, same in animals, same in insects. There is the water, the element of air. Heart, lungs, arteries, eyes, nose, mouth. Fish, birds, animals, insects, same, right? There is the world of fire. Similar in humans, fish, birds, animals. A little too hot, you have to take a layer off. A little too cold, you put a layer on. We're all like that. Water, blood, tears, saliva, body fluids. Same in all living beings. Okay, we saw this last night, right? My flesh and creature's flesh, different only in name. We come in many shapes, but our nature is the same. No different shapes. Trees stand on their roots, and people stand on the roots that are their parents. Okay, I have to go quickly through this. We're going to run out of time. Half of a tree is invisible. Half of a tree is under the ground. But that's the important half that holds it up. The tree eats from its roots. It's essential to it, but you can't see it. Behind every single person listening tonight, whether we're here in the Buddha Hall or listening at home, behind us, invisibly, there are two people. Behind those two people, invisibly, there are two people. We go back and back and back. Look at this tree. This is a sketch from life. The roots are deeper than the branches above the ground. There we go. That tree is not going to blow over soon. Okay? This is a zhang nao tree where Tiantai Shan 那个国清寺就是恒律法师，恒律方丈。So, what are my human roots? My parents, my grandparents, ancestors, teachers. Truly. Okay? Grandmother, son, child. Okay? These are the grandparents. Here's grandpa. Here's mom, grandmother. Twins, sets of twins. Okay? Two sets of twins. This is the mother, this is the father. 4 twins. Tongbao. So, moving on here. Filiality, filial respect, comes from the word fils, which means child in French. Xiao. It is not piety, it's respect. Lao, zi. The child holds the elder up. The relationship is vertical. There it is. Okay. Here is a relationship. Here's a relationship. 3 generations, right? Triplets, oh boy. 1 German family, grandpa, grandma. This is a German family in Colorado. Look at that. Grandpa and grandma are in here somewhere. So yeah, people are like that. So what is the relationship? Here's the idea. Xiao, shun, compliance. The idea is a relationship, filial respect, elders supported by children, after the elders raise the children. Fraternity, T, siblings, next to the heart. That's a horizontal relationship. Okay, filial respect is vertical, fraternal connection is horizontal. A child who grows up here knows who or she is. They know who they are. They're not lost. Somebody knit by relationships in the center of the network is not lonely. They are not alienated. Okay? Now, Tian Di Ren form a trinity. And the proper study of people should be people, humanity, how to get along in the world of living, in the world of relationships. When we set the relationships in order, as they say, all under heaven finds the Tao, Zhong Tao, harmony and balance, after we set the relationships in order. So, commandment from the 10 Commandments, the 10戒, honor your father and mother so that your days will be long in the land and all will go well with you. It says, 孝顺父母，你的日子会久长，会延长，一切都幸福. Right? So, honoring your father and mother is the roots. When you do that, you get to live longer. The tree doesn't blow over, and everything works out because you are rooted in the right relationship. Okay, now, filiality means repaying kindness. Taking that primary relationship and often healing an ache and a wish for the physical parent who is not there. This is the method to answer Sharon's question. What do you do if you really cannot go back to find that individual person because they're dead, they're terrible people, they are harmful, hateful people, or they're missing, right? What do you do? What my father and mother have both passed on, right? My father died at age 49, so I have lived already, almost 30 years longer than my father. So that primary relationship, when I look for that person, if they are not there, how I experience that is an ache. It hurts in my heart where the father or mother would be. Now, if the father or mother is no longer there, the need for the strength of the father, the firmness and the stability that can say no without being mean, that father principle is not embodied, but it's in me. I have that need and that potential to be that person inside. The mother, if she is missing, she represents compassion and nurturing and yielding and feeding uncritically. The mother gives life. The father gives shape. Okay? If there are not physical mothers or fathers there, I still have the place in my nature that needs that connection. Now, here is something important. When we were growing, we were powerless. We were dependent on the kindness of parents to give us our physical lives. Whatever they said, we had no power to change it. We were small, they were big. They often could be cruel and mean or stern or careless. They paid no attention to us. That need for the nurturing mother and the strong father is still there inside us. We are no longer that child. We are now able to make decisions for ourselves. The need to have those qualities have not gone away, but often we are now in the position to embody the firmness of the father and the nurturing of the mother in our own lives. So here is what we do. We say, I care now to heal that wound. I'm hurting. I know that I want to grow in the Tao. My mother is not there. My father is not there. I'm now an adult. I am not powerless. I am not unable to make decisions for myself. I care to make that better. Okay, so what do? I open my heart to experience what I'm feeling. I don't block it away because it's too terrifying. I am now meditating so I can experience the hurt, the ku, the dukkha in my nature. I can open to my experience and say, I forgive my parents for being mean, hurtful, or gone. I need that function in my own nature. I can forgive them and move on. My parents did not have a book that taught them how to be parents. They did it by the seat of their pants. They did it by instinct, just like every parent. I don't blame them for not being terrific at it. So now, mind you, I'm saying these things. There are some children who have wonderful relationships with their parents. You understand this completely. I'm talking to the people who come to me afterwards and saying, are you telling me I should go back to that? Or, my mother was never gone. She died in childbirth. Can I be filial? Or children now who say, I never saw my father. I was raised by my phone. I was raised by a multiplayer video game. Day after day after day after day, because those were the only people I knew. I came home and there was no one there, right? So for those people, open the heart in your meditation. Forgive your parents. They gave it their best, given their lives. And then what? One more step. Listen to the lessons of your nature. You're no longer a child. You can now become the adult that you want to be. The more you listen, the more you care. Because why? It hurts. And you don't want to pass it on. The more you care, the more you dare to open up your heart and experience those feelings. Forgive your physical parents and promise not to pass on the absence or the hardness, the meanness, the pain. The more you open to it, the more you can hear your grown-up compassion and wisdom in your own heart. And the more you hear, the more you care to heal it. So this is the answer, is to, now you can do this safely in your meditation, or there's an even better way to do it, bowing. Bowing is a really wonderful way to have this experience, because why? It's safe. Often when I bow, emotion will rise up, and I will go back and experience things that I didn't remember had happened, because I had blocked them with the muscles of my body. When you bow, you open up your legs, you open up your chest, you open up your mind, and these things flow up. To say, yeah, I care now. I really want to heal. I know my parents didn't have a handbook on how to be good parents. I want to listen to what my mind is telling me about my current situation. And the more I do that, the more I care about healing the pain of growing up. I think more people experience an ache when they go into their hearts regarding their parents than don't have that ache. I think it's very, very common. So this is my suggestion for how we can actually, using Dharma in a time when the family around children is gone by and large. It's really hard to find a extended family to raise a kid, right? Mostly we do it ourselves these days. So in a time like this, filiality is not gone, it's not dead, and people can still cultivate the way. But we have to have a method to get into our own hearts and find the father in me and the mother in me and bring them out by listening, by caring, by opening to it, forgiving our parents for their absence or their cruelty towards me or their lack of care. They didn't care, they paid no attention to me, right? Everybody has a different story, but if we can let them go and say, I am no longer a helpless, powerless child who has to obey. I am now ready to become a kind-hearted and strong adult, become my own mother, my own father, and repay. This allows us to bring filiality into our cultivation. So this is my suggestion. I don't know if people make sense of that. Sharon, that's it. What do you think? Allow your hearts to care. Let the ache be. Witness the dukkha, the discomfort, the cool. Listen to what it tells us. Accept the lesson and move on, newly in charge of my life. We don't want to be powerless children forever, right? And the Dharma gives us a way to do that. Heal the primary relationships. Your mind is on solid roots. Then you can repay kindness. If that's not possible, just open and listen to it and know that your parents were people too. And it's hard to be a good parent. Okay, there we go. So that's kind of part 2 or 3 already of filiality, part 2, I guess. We'll continue tomorrow with more on precepts. I'll show you what I got here. Precepts historically from Judaism, Islam, Hinduism. These are all the different numbers of precepts. We've got the Lü Yi Jie, we got the She Yi Qie Shan Fa Jie, we got the Rao Yi Zhong Sheng Jie, the 5, the 8, the 10 major 48, the 250 and the 348, etc. And this discussion of, this is an important one here. There's this thing that happens, I'll talk about it tomorrow. So it's, yeah. Okay, there we go. Any questions come in? Nobody dares. They fell asleep about half an hour ago, right? So, okay. All right. I think I'm not the only one who approached precepts as somebody else's rules, right? That if I could beat them, if the Buddha didn't catch me breaking the precepts, I was free, you know. And I had to really, really learn a whole new approach towards the idea that rules set you free. That was a different understanding. Okay, there we go. All right, let's dedicate merit. Thank you. Everybody who's been working so hard on the repentance here, and I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow night. This is the 4th night. We have a few more to go. Got to make a wish. Send your mind out far. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of luminous and bright. If people hear and see, now hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow relieve their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. And after that, we'll bow to the Buddha. Here we go, 3 bows. First bow, second bow, third bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. There we go. Alrighty, that'll do it for us for tonight. See you tomorrow. Ami tofu, everybody.